All right, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to our eighth session of our subject IT 313. So, our topic for this evening is about research hypothesis. So, our objectives for this evening is to number one, discuss research hypothesis. Number two, value the importance of research hypothesis, and number three, understand research hypothesis. So, for research hypothesis, it is explanation for a phenomenon. And for a hypothesis to be scientific hypothesis, the scientific method requires that one can test it. So scientists generally base scientific hypotheses on previous observations that cannot satisfy and explain by the availability of scientific theories. That means even though that words hypothesis and theory are often used synonymously, meaning from time to time they are interchanged, a scientific hypothesis is not the same as scientific theory, so they are all differ. So for the use of hypothesis, this is a specific testable prediction, and it comes to concrete terms. It describes what you expect will happen to a certain circumstance. So why do we use hypothesis generating interviews? To obtain initial clues on possible sources of exposure, to develop hypothesis testing questionnaires, and of course to identify signs and symptoms or of anything that is being studied. So for hypothesis testing, this is also in conjunction with any useful hypothesis that will create or enable predictions by reasoning. So this enabling of predictions or reasoning is called deductive reasoning, no? So tanan kita guys may ginatawag kita nga deductive reasoning, no? So for deductive reasoning, we choose to believe on a certain stance, and that stance can be eliminated based on your observation. So this is true if, of course, for a person to be mostly logical person. So it might predict the outcome of an experiment in laboratory settings or the observation of phenomenon in nature. And that the prediction may also invoke statistics and only talk about probabilities. So the probability is either slightly or most probable or higher. That is they are going to compare your theory or your hypothesis. So for so much for the uses of hypothesis, may ginatawag pa kita guys nga scientific hypothesis. So this one should explain what to expect to happen, and this is a clear and understandable. This must be also testable, measurable, and contain independent and dependent variables, no? So what is scientific hypothesis? This is not an uneducated guess, but hypothesis is based on factual information, and it is also based on experiences, and you must have in preliminary investigation, and of course you are using logic. So as I've said, scientific hypothesis must be testable, must be clear, can be measured, and it is straight to the point. So moreover, about scientific hypothesis, there are actually 5 consideration, no? So this is 5 in consideration with scientific hypothesis. It's found on your module, no? And people refer to a trial solution to a problem as hypothesis, but often called an educated guess. So educated guess na siya. So when we speak about an educated guess, hindi ka pwede ka pakot or ka hambal, most probable, before you analyze the cause and effect of a circumstance. So it must be that the suggested outcomes is provided based on the evidence. And some scientists reject the term educated guess because it's incorrect. So it must be scientific, no? And experiments may test and reject several hypotheses before solving the problem. So according to Schick and Vaughan, 2021, researchers weighing up alternative hypotheses may take into consideration. So these are the 5 considerations that for scientific hypothesis. No? Number one is testability. So this is in comparison with the falsibility and discussion on scientific hypothesis. So it must be testable. The second one is parsimony, and in the application of Occam's razor, it means discouraging the postulation of excessive number of entities. So ang postulation is the step in creating a theory. So before you make a theory, you must postulate anay. So gina-postulate mo, so gina-build up mo anay ang theory mo based on the conjunction of your educated guess or your observation. So it's called parsimony, no? Number 3 is scope. And scope is the apparent application of hypothesis to multiple cases of phenomena. In simpler term, guys, a study in ang study ninyo. So scope na siya. Ang ana nga nasakpan or ang ana nga kabilugan. So like for example, if you say manang palang sa inventory system, manang palang sari-sari store inventory system. So ma-concentrate lang kamo kay manang palang sa ana nga sari-sari store kag nga ibutangan nyo, himuan nyo ka inventory system. So dyan lang nag-revolve ang study ninyo sa tatlo ka variable nga daan. So amo na ginatawag na scope. In fruitfulness naman, these are the prospects that the hypothesis may explain further phenomena in the future. So fruitfulness. Fruitfulness is this one can be explained further in the phenomena, not now, but in the future. And the last one is conservatism. And conservatism is the degree of fit with existing recognized knowledge systems. So let's move on to working hypothesis. So kung may scientific hypothesis kita, may ginatawag man kita nga working hypothesis. So in layman's term, guys, working hypothesis is the preliminary assumption. So mo na ginatawag nga preliminary assumption. Meaning to say, the researcher works about the research topic, and then it must be an accurate information regarding the problem, and it's not available that we can develop some assumptions. So these assumptions will help us to design the final research hypothesis. So like for example, in our example here, the researcher can state the working hypothesis as assuring educational school decreases the living standard of commodity. So, pero ano sabi guys, this sample is descriptive in nature. So, maghambal ka mga working hypothesis. Example, if your title is Manang Palang's sari-sari store inventory system, your working hypothesis should be that your inventory system will help Manang Palang to make a record of the transactions within her sari-sari store. So, that is your working hypothesis. So if you're going to it is not just that you're going to say something like that, but rather guys, you have to record the statement for the hypothesis. So later on you will know how to write null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, no? So may ginatawag kita guys nga null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. So maghambal ka mo nga null hypothesis, this is just a negation. Negation means baliskad ka inyong alternative hypothesis. So being alternative hypothesis is the positive outcome of the study. And sometimes guys, in your study, it depends upon the title and the comparison within the aspects of experimentation. So the hypothesis will tell you, amo dyan yung studyan nato, no? Ng mga variables, ka mga values. Now, why is it that some researches give weight much more sa null hypothesis? So because null hypothesis will prove that your study is testable and workable. So that is why ang gina-prioritize is the null hypothesis over the alternative hypothesis. So testingan nyo anay ang statement ninyo sa null hypothesis. Meaning to say, kung mag-star ka mo ka null hypothesis, ang madayadang tunan ninyo. So the alternative hypothesis must be accepted kung sala ang null ninyo. And the other way around, kung sakto gid man yung null hypothesis nyo, so butang balod ang i-reject ninyo ang alternative hypothesis. So that is why gina-prioritize yung null hypothesis over alternative hypothesis. So mind you guys, your null hypothesis is symbolized by HO, kamudaan ng symbol, null, and ang symbol ninyo para sa inyong alternative hypothesis is HA. Okay? Now, in our example, let me present to you ang sa module ninyo bala so that you can see this one. Wait lang. So in your module, guys, you have a sample here, null hypothesis versus alternative hypothesis. So your activity 11 later on will, what you're going to do is to write your null hypothesis versus your alternative hypothesis. So before we go to the example here sa Dalom, let us take notice of what is null hypothesis. I-define natin anay kung ano yung ginatawag nga null hypothesis. And i-define natin anay kung ano ang ginatawag natin nga alternative hypothesis. So when you speak about null hypothesis, this is simply a statement saying that you expect no difference in outcomes between groups or that no relationships exist between the given variables in your hypothesis. Meaning to say, there is no relationship existing between the given variable in your hypothesis. So that is null hypothesis. Now, magambal ka mo alternative hypothesis. This is one is that it simplifies the difference in particular direction when one compares two groups or a group at different points in time. So in short, it's the opposite of your null hypothesis. So amodaya. Now in your in your activity later on, amodaya ka mo mag-plaster ha ka sample ninyo. So example naton di ang isulat ninyo anay ang title. So ang sample title naton di is manang palang sari-sari store inventory system. Then isulat naton niya HO niya. So paano magsulat ka HO? This one. Butang niyo HO anay and then butang ang colon. Then there is no significant difference to the implementation of an inventory system at manang palang sari-sari store in terms of its usefulness and functionality. So, diin nyo ginbuol ang usefulness and functionality nila. Kung dumadumduman ninyo karang last week na nagsulat ka mo kay inyong variables, nagsulat gali ka mo kay inyong ganang activity natin karang last week. So, makita ninyo ang statement bala sa usefulness and functionality. So, amo daya inyong i-test mo ang usefulness and functionality. Usually kada guys sugpunan pagani kada dyan in terms of efficacy and design. So pwede nyo in terms of its usefulness and functionality in terms of usefulness and functionality. Kung may sugpon pa dade, sugpunan nyo dade ka in terms of design and efficacy. So depende da karang last week ninyo nga statement sa tong ginobra ninyong activity bala. So yung ginobra naton karang nagligad nga nga activity is your objectives gali sa objectives ninyo. So sa research objectives nga ginsulat ninyo sa specific objectives na ginabuol, no? So design the computerized inventory database of Paulos Enterprises, Poblacion Elias and Enrique Iloilo. Evaluate the developed systems as its usability. So pwede ninyong isulat dayan nga pareho kada. There is no significant difference in the implementation of inventory system at Paulos Enterprises, Poblacion Elias and Enrique Iloilo in terms of design, kung makita niyo kay Nadia, in terms of design, ang sa number 1 na specific objective. And then sa ikaduwa nga specific objective is sa usability. So evaluate ninyo yung usability na. So mo da ibutang ninyo di sa ninyo sa inyong hypothesis. Amo mo lang da guys. So and then ang pag-plaster na sundalang ninyo ang format naton nga pareho kadaya na. Okay. So mo da guys magsulat kamo ka inyong null hypothesis, it is represented by HO, and in your alternative hypothesis, which you are represented by HA. All right. So for your activity number 11, it's called so sala dayon no, refer to res of G sum 110 karang nagligad ninyo nga semana. Ang dyan inyo nga i-refer hypothesis testing no. So ma-refer kamo sa null versus alternative hypothesis which is found here sa module ninyo. And then you're going to write your HO and HA. And you may use any online and offline software, provided it will be copy-pasted to any word processor, and then convert it to PDF and save it as activity 11. Then upload it in your Google Classroom. So that will be your activity 11. Okay? Okay, sige. So muna guys, mag-plus star ka inyong hypothesis. Mag-test ka mo ka hypothesis ninyo. Okay? So, balik sa slides natin. So, for our code of the day, your code of the day states that what is the symbol for null hypothesis? So, that will be your code of the day. So again, what is the symbol for your null hypothesis? That is your code of the day. Your code of the day will be activated after our lecture this evening, and you can answer it from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. So, kabay pa hindi ko lang malipatan no nga i-activate. So remind niyo ako karon guys ha, nga i-activate ko yung code of the day ninyo. Sige, so thank you again. And our reminder, that is ad astra per sapientia, it means to the stars through knowledge. Okay, so thank you guys for attending our lecture for this evening, and I hope that you learned out of the demo of the demonstration our activity. So imuan ninyo, collaborate kamo, kamuan ninyo daya by group. By the way, sino pa kaninyo wara at group? Hay midterm do ninyo next week no? Dapat may grupo do kamo, and ang activity ninyo sa group ninyo himuon. So hambalin lang ninyo ako guys kung sino pa way inyong grupo, and then para maka-group kamo. Or dapat ang group members is 4 kabilog ha. So don't forget. So 4 kamo kabilog. Ang hypothesis, this one is the prelude of your activity karang nagligad semana, which is ang inyong objectives no. So after objectives, then you have the working hypothesis. This is very important. Your hypothesis is also important because some of the aspects of your regulated experiences for your outcomes is there based on your activity or on your alternative hypothesis, and in so much more for the testing for the null hypothesis. As I've said, your null hypothesis is the working hypothesis, which means amo day ay inyo nga testingan. So insa nga sulat siya sa negative nga order, that is to preserve the integrity of your activity or your research capstone, plus the fact that your capstone will be simplified if ever you start it in a right way. So based on statistical data, you can prove that your null hypothesis must be accepted or rejected. So kung i-accept ninyo may mga point value especially sa statistics bilang atong ginobra ninyo nagligad subject nyo. Ang hypothesis ninyo dalawa lang kabilog ang isulat no, null hypothesis kag alternative hypothesis. Pero dapat may title kamo. So to kay na bala guys nga tong ginobra ninyo. Amo day hindi nyo pag-isulat nga dang pareho katong objectives ninyo nga gintunga ninyo sa duwa ang specific objective. So diyan kamo mabuol sa specific objectives. Diyan kamo sa specific objectives mabuol no. Karang nagligad nga sa nga ano bala naton nga dang nga topic ang objectives bala karang nagligad semana. So diyan kamo mabuol sa specific objectives. Amo day himuon ninyo nga hypothesis. So plus star kamo ka hypothesis ninyo, mamuon ninyo ang pareho ka sample naton sa manang palangs inventory system no, sari-sari store inventory system. So meaning to say, gin-implement nyo yadang inyong inventory system sa sari-sari store ni manang palang. So based on your keen observation, ano yung outcome na? So amo day gwa na. So masabtan ninyo yung pamangkot nga ano yung nabulig kay inyong inventory sa pag transact a business within sa inyong sari-sari store ni naman ang palangs. So mo daywa na. So ano guys, ang kung pira ka bilog imuon ninyo, duwa lang ka isa lang ka statement para sa null hypothesis kag isa man ka statement para sa alternative hypothesis. Okay. So mo lang da to brown ninyo. So pira mo lang da ka statements gani gamay mo lang. Isa mo lang da ka statement kali imuon nyo. Isa ka statement para sa null hypothesis, isa man ka statement para sa alternative hypothesis. So amo da. So may pamangkot kamo pagid guys, party sa activity naton. I-discuss ko doon inyong imuon naton para sa midterm ninyo next week. By the way guys, why ko pa maobra inyong why ko pa maobra inyong midterm. Kaya ang inyong midterm is basically ginaparamdam ko pa kung paano nato nimuon yung metrics na. But siyempre, I still have how many days to take care of it. So don't worry, be happy. And we will be going to have, we're going to schedule na lang siguro ang sa free time ninyo sa next week. Kung ano yung pagpasunod ka defense ninyo. So yung content pagid ka ng presentation. So ibutang ninyo day as a PowerPoint presentation guys ha. So more or less obrahon nyo malang kada. Una-una ma-introduce ka mo abi nga apat nga group member. Maano kita dyan lang ka mo ma-defend sa dang Google Meet. Maset lang ako ka time and date. Siyempre hindi man dyan maubos gid no. So pasunudo naton. And then afterwards i-rate ko kamo ya criteria ka rating ninyo. Obrahon ko pa. So siyempre ang kun ano ang criteria i-announce ko sa inyo nga FB group within this week. And then at the same time kung paano ta kamo gridan no sa ano ninyo. Then sa criteria nga dang i-present ninyo. Pagkatapos actually ang i-present nyo malang is 5 titles no, 5 ka titles. So ibutan nyo da sa PowerPoint presentation so that nga pag-share ninyo makita ka tanan ninyo nga classmate no. So makritik kita, ako lang siguro yung makritik anay no. Hindi lang kita na mag-invite ka mga guest. Ma-invite kita ka guest sa final presentation din ninyo sa chapters 1, 2, 3 ninyo sa final. So obrahon ta i-present i-introduce nyo anay ko galingon ninyo kamong apat kung ano yung name ka group nyo para masulat ko da sa dang criteria sa dang para mitamdan ako kadang inyong nga dang metrics kag diyan ako mabase ka grade ninyo sa metrics sa may criteria. So i-present ko da kaninyo sa next week or sa within this week guys para matun-an do ninyo. I-obrahon mo lang ninyo una-una butang kamo ka slide ano man lang ka slide ay imuon nyo imuon nyo sa front page butang nyo dyan yung group member ninyo ngaran ang ngaran ka grupo nyo then ang group member sa dalom then ang sa sunod na slide that will be 5 pasunod na is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 meaning to say ang 5 da ka title i-present nyo ma-start kita sa pinaka list favorite ninyo nga title. Then, ang katapusan will be ang gusto-gusto gid ninyo nga title. Ang ginagamit niyo doon do karon bala sa mga activity naton ang maday last ninyo nga i-present. Then, maano kita ma-choose kita out of 5 nga title ninyo, may mo do lang 3. So, ang 3 nga top 3 da nga ginatawag, meaning to say ang top 3 nga title amo day ayad ang pinakauna ninyo amo ng katapusan. Pasunod naton 1, 2, 3, 4 kundi kada dyan nga sa 5 nga dang i-present ninyo. Then amo da yung ga-comprise kay inyo nga midterm grade. So mabase da sa dang ninyo. Kung ma-notice ninyo guys sa Google Classroom ninyo may butang do katong dang midterm. Dayan kada dyan mabilong ang sa major exam ninyo i-present ninyo sa activity naton sa next week. So may pamangkot kamo parte sa activity naton sa this week. So sige, may pamangkot ka mo parte sa imuon naton sa next week. May dyan pa ka mo. So more or less mo daya obrahon naton. So that is why, do karon pa lang, himuado ninyo yung PowerPoint presentation ninyo guys ha. palihog hindi ka mo na yung magwa before kita mag-end ka ng ano naton kanang session naton for this evening, na picture taking kita anay. Kaya ginapangayuan gali kami ni Ma'am Alingalan kadang inyong picture no wa gid ako ipakita. So karon guys, ready na ninyo yung mga buhok niyo diyan kag mga ano ninyo pangusay. Kay karon ma-picture taking kita ha. So para nga may ma-present ako sa ano ninyo. Kay every ano ano kami ka report. Yeah, so pamatuod ay ang nag-attend kamo kay inyong klase kanakon no sa subject ninyo nga daya. So that is karon later lang before we I'm sorry about the signal distortion sa natabo karang yesterday sa subject naton nga pang-aga. It's because natuya ako sa eskwelahan kag hindi gid manamit ang signal. At the same time, ang ginagamit ko lang kato ang computer to sa school kag cellphone ko. So medyo gasagarak kay daan doon yung phone. At least diya gagamit ako ka laptop. Okay gid diya kabay pang okay yung signal kag yadang ano ninyo no kanakon. Why ko manabi guys gina ano no, pag ano ko karon so later on just amo lang da guys, ang brown ninyo starting now panumdom na kamo ka 5 titles ninyo, and then that will be amo man lang da i-present mo lang da, and then the criteria for the metrics, ang metrics nga da amo da yung mga criteria ka kundi kung paano ta kamo gridan metrics kada tawag. So why since why kita exam nga physical exam nga multiple choice or ano diyan ako mabase kay inyo nga midterm grade. So be present gid next week sa time nga i-schedule naton. What is your free time next week guys? Kung hindi kita kasalot siguro sa mga gabi kita masulod or sa Sabado or Domingo nga time. Google Meet lang kita. Or maybe just tell me lang kay i-draw lots ko kaninyo kung sino yung ano, or by volunteer kung sino yung gusto mauna or sino gusto so mo lang daya ano nato next week guro. So just prepare 6 slides lang ang group members and title ang group members ninyo and ang group name and group members, then the 5 titles. So mo lang daya gusto ko makita sa slide ninyo why don't it dugang. So that will be your midterm. Hapos mo lang hulas mo lang So dapat ano ninyo isa sa mga criteria is kung paano ninyo i-present. So dapat manami man niya pag-present ninyo next week. Do may presentation man bala, do may workmanship nga ginatawag bala. And then also work on your spelling and grammar sa ano ninyo. That is why you use plagiarism checker or the Grammarly so that may remedyo ang grammar ninyo. Or kung hindi ko gusto ka Grammarly, you can use any grammar tool na makita niyo sa Google. Duro do dyan guys, yung mga grammar tool na pwede ninyo nga i-ano. So pwede ang correction again sa mga titles pa lang ninyo. Daw nag-title defense kamo kadayagwa na ang diya naton. So title defense. So yung gwa na kada out of 5, mas select kita title ng best title ninyo. So there will be no wrong answer or wrong just some critiquing lang based on the criteria. Then syempre you will be graded by group kung ano yung contribution ninyo sa group ninyo. At the same time, I will ask the group members kung may binuligan gilman kamo no. Hindi ka mo magbinutig kung may binuligan kamo kung ay hate parte da ka grade ninyo. And then the other one is for individual grade, and for the group grade no sa effort ninyo kung nag-cooperate man kamo sa group niyo or why. So I will ask each and every one of you of your contribution sa title nga gin-obra ninyo. So tandaan ninyo 4 kamo guys sa grupo. So araw pa nga pwede nang assignan yung katag isa ka title no. So ano yung title nga mayad? Syempre related sa ano niyo sa subject. Hindi descriptive pang pang IT ang klase ka title. So mga systems or byproducts or websites or database. What else? Mga local systems, library systems, inventory system, billing system. So ang mga amo daya gusto ko ma-expect nga makita sa mga presentation ninyo. Okay? So nakagrupo man ka pa. So okay, good. Why get the problema, no? So do you have any some more questions, guys? The update on that, I will just announce it from time to time. Okay? We still have a class on Friday. So more of the details, and I hope that I can finish by Friday ang criteria. Randel, amo dagana doon yung exam naton. Si Randel man bala mo, nagapakadlaw. Amo do dayo exam ninyo, midterm exam ninyo to, presentation ninyo. So hindi ka mo mag-absent sa next week. I-absent ta na white grade white grade ta na absent. Why ka cooperate, why man it grade So oo, ano lang naton to. Ano lang naton yun ang ano ninyo. Matawhay makamo kada ti dang exam week ninyo siguro, or pwede naton da mapaisol-isol gamay guro nga mga inadlaw. Pwede man nato da ibutang Sabado guro. Para nga wala gid sa vlog sa ano ninyo. Next week, guys, hindi ako magtao ka module nyo. So para nga mag-giveaway sa exam week. Hindi why do kamot kana at least kana ako ng subject wala kamot module. Oo. Kay ti exam week gani. Exam ma-break makamot gamay hindi man nga do pirado gid ka walo do ka ka semana nga module inyo. So sa exam week ninyo next week, wala ka module kanakon sa subject ninyo, sa duha ka subject. Exam week tanada mo, wala tanada dapat module da. Module lang obrahon ninyo ang tulad nga week. And concentrate ka mo sa exam ninyo next week. Amo day mayad. Hindi dat manami tanadon kun ano silot do da kaninyo kun tawan pa kamo ka mga maestra ninyo kami kadang module next week nga exam week na. So, hindi that manami. Good. So, take a break lang and then paano ka mo kapanumdum kamayad yung title kag presentation ninyo kung tawaan ta pa kamo kadang ka module. So, makahulat man ng module sa sunod ng module nga semana duman sa sunod pagid nga semana. Okay, so some more inquiries, guys, or do you have something to say? May gusto ka mo iambal kanakon? Or sa mga classmates ninyo? Okay man. Okay, sige. So, salamat gid sa pag-cooperate ninyo and sa ano ninyo, no? Sa pag-attend ninyo ka klase naton nga tulad ng gabi. Guys, before kita mag-end, sige doon ipakita nyo doon yung tsura nyo sa salamat gid. Dali maladya. So, i-open nyo doon guys yung camera nyo. Medyo ano man yung buhok nyo, gamay. Ako gatirindog yung buhok upang usay, abi mo. Sige. Dali mo na dyan. Few shots lang, guys. And then, we'll be good, all good na. Okay. Kagwapa, gali. Kagwapo. Sige. Abrin yun, paliyog. Alena, buksin nyo doon. Henry, paliyog. Clea, Sheila May, and Justin. So, kamod lang yung nabilin di Jan Ray, paliyog dyan to. Camera mo to, i-open. Sige, hindi doon para makauli. Do kita. Abrihin nyo doon yung camera nyo, palihog. Si Alena, please open your camera. Okay, very good. Thank you. Sige, ready doon, guys, ha? Ready doon. Sige, ready. 1, 2, sige, si Vincent pa, dali lang. John Ray. I-open nyo doon camera nyo, please, Clea. I-open yung camera nyo, palihog. Ready? Ready, 1. Justin, camera mo to. Clea May, sige doon. Maskin dulom, okay lang dali mo na dyan. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Liwat. Si Sheila May, dali lang. 1, 2. Okay doon. Sige, dali lang Okay, isa pa. Dali lang. Ko lang di anay. Face ko di. Pasensya lang yun kamo guys. Ang pamatuod mo lang dyan nga nag-attend kamo ka klase natin. Sad lang. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Okay, salamat. Thank you, Ged. And may nagdugang. Sige. Salamat, Ged. And mayong gabi sa tanan, Ged. Thank you, Ged, sa pag-attend ninyo, guys. To lang kamo, i-inform from time to time. about the ano ninyo, the things that you're going to do and the criteria for their grades on your presentation next week. So salamat and mayong gabi. I will post this FB page or sa FB group so that your other classmates can see this and they will be informed. Or please tell your classmates nga maano ka mo doon na nga maubra ka inyo nga title nga i-present ninyo. So ibutang ninyo sa PowerPoint presentation. Anom ka slides. Ang first slide, ang mudaya group name and group members. Then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ang pinaka-importante nga title sa katapusan. Ang pinaka-list nga important ang sa una. So i-critic naton, ako lang makritik anay. Hindi ka mo magkabalaka, ako malang ya makritik. Sa final ninyo, invitado kita ka, ma-invite kita ka mga experts doon. So that nga mga papeles duged ka inyong manuscript. Okay guys, bye-bye and good night. Mayong gabi
Bye-bye,
lang
sir.
sa kanila.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Gid. Thank you, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, you're welcome.